Hi, Adam Blumberg here with Protocol Wealth. And again, we're talking today more about concentrated wealth positions. And the question I'm asking today, is your portfolio too concentrated? It's a question a lot of people ask, and the answers are very generic. And so I want to tell you the answer totally depends on you, your family, and your needs. A reminder real quickly that I'm not giving you personal financial advice. Everything I say here is very general and educational, and if you want personal advice, you need to talk to your own financial advisor, or better yet, contact Protocol Wealth. So now we're starting with this question. Is it always a mistake to have most of your wealth in one investment? Of course, the familiar advice is don't put all your eggs in one basket. You need to diversify. When your position gets to a certain size, you need to start reducing that position. But that advice is not necessarily wrong. It's just a little bit incomplete. So two people or two families can have the same concentrated position and have completely different financial risks. And therefore, the planning they should be doing is a little bit different. So first of all, how is concentrated wealth created? Or concentration is actually how wealth is often created. Right? A founder might own a large percentage of a business that grows in value. You might be an early employee to a company, or in the crypto sense to a protocol, and you get a bunch of stock or tokens or options. If you're an early investor that had conviction in something like Bitcoin or ETH, or an early investor in something like NVIDIA or other AI tools or chip makers or whatever, you might have this concentrated position because of the conviction you had. Your family might own real estate. Your family might own a business. So it represents years of hard work, maybe specialized knowledge, again, maybe this conviction you had, and maybe something that you or someone in your family understands better than anyone else. So it's not necessarily a negative to have, and we know that concentration is what often creates the greatest amount of wealth. But let's compare to two different households, like I said earlier. Two different households, two different families can have a similar concentrated position and still have different planning needs and different risk. So household A maybe has a substantial salary or business income coming in. Maybe they have several years of cash reserves. Maybe their near-term goals are funded. They already have a house. They already know what their mortgage is. They already have adequate insurance and a retirement portfolio. Household B, on the other hand, might depend on whatever this concentrated position is to support themselves, to support their income needs, their cash flow needs. Maybe they have a tax obligation coming up. They don't want to be selling during a downturn. Maybe their salary and their benefits are tied to the same company where their concentrated position is. So again, two different households, they might both have 70 or 80% of their wealth tied up in the same investment. But the consequences of a decline in that value or a decline in that company are very different. So what we need to separate is the financial capacity from the emotional tolerance, right? Does this family or does this person have the ability to take on this risk? Can they meet their expenses and their goals if the asset falls in value significantly? And are they willing to take that risk? We talk about risk oftentimes in the financial world as a measure of your stomach and not your head. You might think logically, I can afford to take volatility risk. I can afford for assets to move up and down. But if you're not going to be able to sleep, if you're going to have arguments with your spouse or your partner, because of these assets that you have, then maybe emotionally you can't really accept that volatility. So the opposite can occur. You might have tremendous conviction in some sort of financial asset. We see this oftentimes in couples where one person has a bunch of conviction, the other person doesn't necessarily, and therefore there exists conflict because one person wants to sell some, one person is worried about the risk, they want to buy a house, they want to go on vacations, the other one is saying, no, this is going to go up, and I can't live with myself if it goes up in value and we've sold it. So you have some of those issues, so you have to separate the financial ability from the emotional tolerance. So the next thing to think about is the parts of your life that should not require this particular asset or this particular concentrated wealth position to behave absolutely perfectly. Think about things like near-term spending, emergency reserves. How much do you need to live month to month, and what happens if there's some sort of emergency? Car breaks down, you need new air conditioning, you have a health emergency. How are you going to fund that? Make sure you have cash available. Things like taxes. Things like housing. How are you going to make sure that you pay for your home, pay for your place to live, afford your taxes? Are you funding education and retirement security? What about your insurance needs, your charitable commitments? What is your actual need for near-term cash? And hopefully that is divorced from the need for this asset to behave absolutely perfectly. The next thing to note is diversifying out of this particular position is not necessarily an all or nothing decision. It's not sell it all or keep it all. You can keep a core position and still build liquidity and cash flow and diversification outside of it. You can direct new savings into other assets and other growth or other income. You can sell gradually and have a plan around how you sell it so you're not selling all at once. You can have predetermined decision rules that say if it goes up a certain amount, we're going to sell X percent. If it goes down a certain amount, we're going to get out of X percent. So in that way, you're separating the financial goals from the speculative upside of this particular asset. And then the key is to review the position. Circumstances change. When will those circumstances change? Maybe if the asset appreciates significantly, maybe if your income changes, maybe if you start making more money, or you lose a job, or you go start a business and now you have to be able to fund yourself. Maybe you have a child and all of a sudden that's an expense. Maybe you want to purchase a home. You get closer to retirement. Maybe the token that you have is getting close to unlocking. Maybe there's an IPO coming for the company that you're with or the company that you sold to. Or just something in the world changes your conviction around this particular investment. We've seen this quite a bit in crypto. We see it in technology. We see it in other assets. Something in the world economy or in the local economy changes your conviction and therefore changes your investment thesis. So overall, remember that having concentrated wealth, having a large position as part of your wealth is not necessarily a bad thing. It is up to you and your family to determine the risks that you can take and how you're going to manage it, and know that every family, every individual is going to have to plan a little bit differently. They're going to have different circumstances in terms of family structure, where they live, what the tax liabilities are. They're going to have different needs in terms of what they need to pay for, how close they are to retirement, where the other income is. I invite you to watch some of the other videos and read some of the other things that we have on concentrated wealth. And I also invite you to contact us or contact your financial advisor to help you understand how to plan, rather than just going to general information sites and just asking in general, what should I do? This is something that takes some coordination around all the different moving parts, moving pieces of this. It takes coordination around your team, your attorneys, your CPAs, your financial advisors to plan for some of these large concentrated positions. Again, I'm Adam Blumberg with Protocol Wealth. Thank you very much.